Sorcerer Battlegrounds finally updated after many months. But what if I told you that the best part of the update we will never get to see? Of course, until now. Because get ready, we're gonna cover this update in its entirety, and everything that had to be cut, for some odd reasons. Most people have looked at the update log and thought to themselves, how the hell did this take 2 months to make? And what if I told you that it didn't? Matter of fact, a lot of the things you see now have only been worked on for the past 3 weeks, but that wouldn't be without reason. Outrage is Turkish, and if you don't know, Roblox was banned in Turkey, so him receiving payments from something that's banned would likely be considered illegal, so of course he had to move countries. Sure, we can let that slide. What I absolutely can't let slide is the other highlight of this update being almost completely cut. That is Midas Black Flash. Take a look! And for what reason did they cut it? Well, for the amount of effects, but can't we at least keep the animation? Now instead we get to ice skate to the opponent in slow motion as they just stand there. Like, what?
They played us like a damn fiddle! Give it back!
Granted, this was changed later on, but holy shit, this is such a downgrade compared to the one before. Not just effects wise, which makes sense, but the animation too. And what if I told you that the best part of Midas domain almost got the same treatment as well? The current animation, which looks like this, is honestly really damn good, which would have been atomized down to this. But thank God we were able to talk Outrage out of it in favor for the already animated Midas domain expansion. But let's talk about the update and the content it did bring. Let's start off with Midas, who finally released for free. Aside from the final 2 moves, they also partly reworked the base moveset. So let's start with that. First thing they changed was Soul Rend to Soul Crush. Wait, is that from Jujutsu Shenanigans? Guys, I cannot believe that Jujutsu Kaisen would shamelessly steal this concept from Jujutsu Shenanigans 7 months prior. Jokes aside, no, this wasn't copied from JJS, because both games are based off of the same show, so I don't see a reason to gatekeep a singular move. But as for the move itself, it's a multi-use move. You cannot do them back to back, since the enemy could get up and could escape. Rather, use it later on since it won't go on a cooldown until you use it for the second time. The second thing to be changed is Soul Tenters to Soul Strike. It's a pretty fast but generic dash grab that is mainly used in combo extending. This also has a finisher of its own. Now for the ultimate additions. The Black Flash I have already talked about is a dash grab and looks as it is now. By no means is it bad, but again, could we at least have kept the animation with the downgraded effects? But moving on. And for the other highlight of this update, the domain expansion. It honestly looks absolutely stunning. And that's only if you're the one using it, because the actual animation is only client-sided. Just don't check the side of it, yeah? As for the actual function of the domain, your domain punisher changes to your domain effect. Everyone who is inside of the domain will be affected by this. You will either grow a growth, which deals a lot of damage, become a one-piece character, or lose your legs. You can also use it for a second time, which will kill them in one shot regardless of their health. And now let's move to the most overpowered addition, Kashimo. Now with negative discharge you can actually aim it and particles actually match up with the hitbox. The first move, Raw Output, was entirely reworked to a 2-use grab. Essentially it's an uppercut that leads to a down slam. And they finally added its final move, which is Thunder Flash. This has multiple variants depending on how you use it. If you use it on someone ragdolled, it will unragdoll them and put them in a roll animation, which you can catch. If you use it up close while they are standing, it simply deals a little bit of damage, and if you're using it from afar, it acts as a grab. The amount of playstyles this allows is actually insane, but how balanced this is, well, not at all. But it's a breath of fresh air for me personally. And for the final addition, which is a bit controversial, the domain rework. On release, this was extremely buggy to say the least, but the actual concept of it is really unique. Now I can do a domain invasion by breaking the barrier. With this, domains also have durability. Now if you pop a domain next to someone else's domain expansion, rather than it giving you a pop-up saying, hey, you can't do that, now you can actually do it. Your domain will be able to overlap the other person's domain and being able to break theirs. Now, here is something that I haven't seen done before in almost any other game. which is Sukuna's domain expansion being able to break other domains from the outside with its cuts. I am personally a mega nerd when it comes to my favorite media, so seeing this actually in-game got me pretty hyped up. Other changes to domain expansions include a faster wind-up, but they're now also cancelable. And oh boy, about the actual quality control for the update. Well, there wasn't any, at least not until an hour before the release. A lot of the testers just didn't have access to the testing place until the literal night of release, resulting in a few issues. But they must have been new testers, right? Well, if you consider being in the testing server for almost 3 months, then yeah, they were pretty new. Before the new testers were invited, back in July, there was a big issue with a lot of the older testers leaking everything before leaving. So, understandably, RH had some trust issues. Taking a while to gain trust is one thing, but giving testing perms on the literal night of release? Come on! But now at least the testers can actually test the game. But let's move on to my actual thoughts of this update. But was this really worth the wait for 2 months? No, absolutely not. And if you aren't satisfied with this update, then that makes complete sense. But what is not fine is shit-talking RH for not being in control of the situation that didn't allow him to work. As for why things were rushed, there's a different reason, which is Gojo's mastery. Time and time again, RH has talked about how good he could make a Gojo mastery, and he clearly shows interest. And I think I can see why some things started to get rushed, as he asked the community if they could finally start work on a Gojo mastery. And if you don't know, Gojo mastery has been teased for months now, and talked about by RH as well. All we can do is hope that Gojo mastery comes out good. But will this really be enough to please the community? The answer is no, because there's always going to be this one person who has a problem with almost anything and is going to make the most hyperbolic comment possible. I've talked about this time and time again, but adding even the smallest of thing can greatly affect how a game is perceived. Personally, I come from a time when having voice lines, for example, for characters was a must, specifically JoJo games. Do you know why this was so important? Because of how explosive and good the voice actors were. And to this day, that's one thing that hasn't changed. The voice actors are just as good as back then, yet we simply don't put that to use. Except for one game, and that's Realm Rampage, which I love. Having voice acting in the game just makes it feel so much more alive. Besides this, there's other ways to improve. Or RH could just do the same thing over and over again because it just works. But until Gojo Mastery, we will just have to see. As usual, ask what you guys thought about this update, and you guys feel mostly the same way. If you wish to share your own thoughts, then be sure to leave a comment, as I'll be reading most of them. But with that, I will see you in the next one.